Nutty Putty is a hydrothermal cave located in the state of Utah. It quickly became famous for its narrow and slippery passageways. This cave had 4 separate rescues of cavers who got stuck inside the cave's tight twists, turns, and crawls. It was estimated the cave was receiving over 5,000 visitors per year, with many visitors often entering the cave late at night and failing to take proper safety precautions. Since 2009, the cave has been closed to the public following a fatal accident that year, an accident so horrifying that will send chills down your spine. To get a better understanding of this horrific accident, let's start out by taking a closer look at the cave's location and some of its characteristics. The Nutty Putty Cave is located in Utah County just west of Utah Lake and about 55 miles from Salt Lake City, which was first explored by Dale Green in 1960. These types of caves are very complex and feature lots of domes and 3-dimensional passages. It had tight squeezes that opened up into a big room, then back to another tight squeeze. The most recognizable characteristic of the cave was the strangely viscous clay oozing from some of its walls. This is John Edward Jones, who loved exploring caves with his family. His father frequently took him and his brother on caving expeditions in Utah when they were kids, and he quickly began to love the underground depths and their dark beauty. Unfortunately, John's first expedition into Nutty Putty Cave was his last. At the time, John was in the prime of his life. He was a married man and had a daughter while he was attending medical school in Virginia. He had come back home to Utah to spend Thanksgiving with his friends and family. On November 24, 2009, 26-year-old John and his 23-year-old brother Josh, along with 9 other friends and family members, entered the Nutty Putty Cave as a way to spend time together ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. It had been years since John was in any cave, and he was no longer the little kid he used to be. About a few hours into the caving expedition, John decided to look for the formation known as the birth canal, a very tight passage which must be crawled through very carefully. John finally found what he thought was the birth canal and inched his way into the narrow passage, head first barely moving using just his hips, stomach, and fingers. That's when he realized that he'd made a huge mistake. John was now in an uncharted part of the cave. He continued to inch forward, but the narrow passage did not come to an end. Instead, the squeeze made a sharp downward turn, but John confidently pressed forward, perhaps noticing the tunnel got wider at the bottom, but it was already too late. He had wriggled into a fissure that went nearly straight down, which made him unable to turn back on his own. The narrow crevice he was trapped in measured 10 by 18 inches. This size is similar to an opening of a front-loading washing machine, except it wasn't a perfect circle, and he was stuck in the tightest part of the opening. Trapped more than 100 feet below the ground and deep inside the cave, all John could do was wait and pray. His brother Josh was right behind him. He tried pulling him out by grabbing his calves, but John slid further into the passage and became trapped worse than before. His arms were now pinned beneath his body. Both brothers said a prayer, and then Josh scrambled toward the exit of the cave to call for help. Within the next couple of hours, many rescuers arrived to help John. The team brainstormed many plans that failed to get John free. The team first started drilling away chunks of rock near John, but due to his awkward position, it made the drilling a really painfully slow process. They were able to drill a few inches of rock in over an hour. They then decided to use a rescue rope that passes through a series of climbing cams, with one end of the rope tied around John's legs and the other end pulled by the team. Things started to look better when the rescuers finally finished installing the pulley system and started pulling John out by his feet. There were 8 men on one end tugging and pulling. They had to make frequent pauses as John was in great pain. After pulling him upwards the 3rd time, John was finally lifted high enough to make eye contact with the team. They had another rest, then started pulling John up the 4th time, but this time something terrible happened, and the entire team fell backward, as the rope suddenly went loose in their hands. Once they got back up to their feet, they realized the stone arch near John's legs, where the rope was tied around, had shattered, and the nearest key bolt had broken off. John had slid right down the crevice again, but this time seemingly even deeper than before. He was now struggling to stay alive as his breathing was much more shallow and less frequent. They called for John many times but received no response. One of the rescuers tried to lower themselves into the crevice to put the rope around John's waist, but they also got stuck but managed to climb back out. At midnight on November 25, 2009, a medical professional crawled into the cave and pronounced that John Edwards Jones has passed due to cardiac arrest at age 26. A total of 137 rescuers worked hard for 27 hours to save him. The next day, the authorities determined that it was too difficult and dangerous to get his body out of the cave, so Nutty Putty Cave will forever remain the final resting place for John Edwards Jones.